Hi, everyone. Ed Bixby here from the Global Green Burial Alliance, and this is Spotlight Now. Today, I have a couple wonderful guests from the Connecticut Death Collective. I have Kate Bagnati, end-of-life doula, a wife and mother of three. She's been managing the Connecticut Death Collective since 2023. She's a writer of a monthly informational newsletter. She hosts monthly potlucks, death over drafts, and educational workshops all over Connecticut. In her spare time, she enjoys being in nature, creating art, gardening, birding, swimming, and dancing Bollywood. Having end-of-life conversations, providing information and education while people are still alive is her passion. There's a great need to empower fellow humans to make their choices so they can feel safe and supported in their end of days. Time is fleeting. She'd like to spend the rest of hers making connections, growing community, and holding space for others in great times of transition. And then we also have Lisa Sarfaty. After a varied career in education, business, and real estate, Lisa dove into study of mortality, death, and dying, including becoming a life cycle celebrant, an end-of-life death doula, and a thanatologist. She has been holding death cafes and death over dinners for a number of years, is currently hosting the Mortality Book and Film Club, which meets monthly at the Madison Scranton Library, along with attending and supporting the various offerings of the Connecticut Death Collective. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're very welcome. So let's start off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Connecticut Death Collective and how it came to be? What inspired this organization's creation?
There were a few women in the COVID days who connected virtually and were trying to get something going in the state of Connecticut. So they started hosting virtual death cafes. When the veil lifted, so to speak, of in-person events started to resume, they decided they wanted to try to start meeting in person. And so in the summer of 2022, they gathered at a beautiful space in Newtown, Connecticut called Sticks and Stones, and had their first in-person event. And it was just under the guise of a community death workers potluck. I was there with my sister, not even in the death community, but just as a I guess a seeker. My mother was ill at the time, and a month later she passed away. So in that first potluck, I met two women who helped me in the hospital with my mother's last 5 days on Earth, and ever since I've been attending and then eventually managing the organization and just trying to spread the word about how important having these conversations is at end of life, ahead of time, not right when you're scrambling to get support at the end, right? I am a gardener and composter and passionate about green burial, so that was kind of also next in line of like, how do we find out more about what options there are in the state of Connecticut? And so here we are.
Well, that's a wonderful
3 years later.
Yeah, it's a wonderful way to get, it's unfortunate that you had to experience that, when your mother was passing, but the wonderful part of that was that you found that support and you found that passion, and that now you can help others through those difficult times. So we appreciate the good work that you and Lisa are doing, and it's really important work. There's no doubt about it. So with that being said, what is considered the standard for burial practices in Connecticut now? Your website mentions some restrictions on home funerals and green burials. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're a little bit behind the times. Right now, I think, with a home funeral, you still have to reach out to a funeral home. You still have to have them involved within 24 hours of a person passing. So say you're with your loved one at home, you have to contact somebody within that 24-hour time period. And there's limited options. There's only one funeral home in the state that offers aquamation. There's natural organic reduction is still not an option here. It's been presented to legislative in the legislative session. It's supposed to again this year, but it might get shelved again, which seems to be happening. There's just the last phone call I was on with representatives. They still have so many questions. And to me, it seems to be a no-brainer. It's just the next stage of things. We're running out of space. And the state only has, I think, maybe 5 cemeteries right now where you can have a natural burial option. So so yeah, we're trying to get the word out and obviously get some things legalized in this state.
Sure, absolutely. I understand that. And I would, people are only afraid of what they don't understand. So obviously with the educational aspect, you ladies will be educating people so they're probably less fearful of the unknown. What's insane about the conversation is, we've been doing this since the dawn of time. It's nothing new, nothing different. Now we somehow have to convince bureaucracy and the industry really to look at something that is very ancient and decide whether or not it's an acceptable practice. But I think, as it's really easier done once people listen a little bit, to the conversation. I think it captures them. You know, I see that you host a lot of interesting events. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how they work? Do you have a most memorable event that you've done? I mean, the potlucks and all the things that you're doing. You seem very active.
I feel like each event we've done has brought because we kind of bop around the state, we've met new people at each one, right? And some people work in the industry and some are just curious, or maybe they're wanting to get into the end of life field and they don't know where to start. On this topic, there is a small store in Norwalk, Connecticut called Echo Evolution, and they really do boast you can go and fill up your shampoo bottles, and you can, they do a lot of composting and a lot of alternative green things within the community. And so we hosted kind of like a mortality and mocktails event, and with the focus on green burial. And so we had the woman who's in charge of green burial in Wilton, Connecticut, come to talk. And yeah, the gentleman that owns the shop was so excited that he actually, I think, might have bought a plot at their natural burial ground, because he was just like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So it was a pretty cool event.
I just want
It
to
sounds like
come in. I want to come in and just say, as I'm not involved so much in the running of the Connecticut Death Collective, I became aware of it through something like this, actually, that my husband heard. And Kate was one of the speakers on the broadcast. And so, because of my interest, I made a contact. And the Connecticut Death Collective is doing a lot for keeping people apprised of what's happening, and also spreading the word and connecting, as somebody said, I think you said, Ed, connecting the dots. So they're really doing a lot to connect the dots. I have a few things that I am very passionate about in my little tiny corner of Connecticut, which is a tiny state too, thankfully, because we can go all over the state pretty easily. But the great thing about the Connecticut Death Collective is that I can send my information. I can send my activities there, and people can find out about it a lot more than I would be able to reach in my little area. And that happens, that's available to everybody around the state. So they're really, I think they're um, part of the solution, really, to getting some of this slowly, but still making progress to get us to the point where a lot of other states are. So I want to express my appreciation.
absolutely. Well, that's wonderful. You're absolutely right. And I mean, this question here, maybe I could direct to you, Lisa, because you have your mortality in film club, and are you seeing increasing, let's say, openness and interest from the community in having the conversations we're talking about their mortality and exploring the alternative burial options? So when they come to you, how are you being received with all that?
Well, very well. It can be a small group. We can be 5 people. We can be 20 people. It depends, obviously on people's schedules and everything else. But yeah, it's people who are coming are, I think they have either a certain comfort or curiosity about the topic and either want to know more or particularly want to spend time where they can be free to talk about something that in many other parts of their lives they don't feel free. People are not interested in talking about it. My daughter doesn't want to hear about this. I can't get my mom to talk about it. She's in hospice, but she's still, things like that. So yeah, people come with very specific questions, but a lot of it is you want to be with your people. Like, can I be with people who are willing to be open and vulnerable about the fact that we're all going to die and we don't know when? And like, let's talk about it now. And like, let's think about it now because it makes life sweeter. It really, I mean, I don't think a lot of people are willing to look at I'll call it a fact for me, that my interest in mortality actually helps me live and live differently. Like I live differently because I'm constantly reminding myself that I'm not going to be around forever. So I can make different choices. I can choose to be more connected. I can choose to be more contemplative. I can choose to what I read, etc. Versus just going along like it's never going to happen. As I always say, my mother said up until the day before she died, I'm not going to die. And we'd go, I know, Mom, I know. And that was her way, and that's perfectly fine. But I don't want to do that. So yeah, we're finding that more people are interested in talking about it, both from a curiosity, but also from needing to process fears that come up, which are natural. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm glad you touched on that, because what people need to understand is that, the one thing we all share in common as human beings, are unfortunately death and taxes. You can't avoid either one of them. And, ultimately, we're all going to end up in the same place. And you're absolutely right. When you're able to accept the fact that you won't live forever, you do live differently. I can completely agree with that. And I do encourage everyone on this call to consider talking about it, because once you talk about it, it becomes far less fearful of dying itself. So that's really good advice. So for this one, I'll direct to Kate. Beyond the events, what types of services and resources do you offer? I know your website features a really comprehensive directory. What else? So if I was looking for help, would I be able to reach out to you as a consumer and say, hey, ladies, how can, what do I do?
Certainly. We're still a pretty small group, so, it's one of those things where if somebody sends me an email, I'm gonna respond within the day, and hopefully at least if I can't help them, point them in the right direction. We have a handful of people that do work in the funeral industry that we're in touch with, and a handful of people that that are end-of-life doulas or hospice volunteers or training hospice volunteers. So really, it's just a matter of, what exactly they're looking for. Last spring, I did a couple of workshops at a local library, and one was just on disposition. So, people really were like, wait, you can be buried at sea? I didn't know that. You can, you can just put your body in the ground. Yep, you can do that too. And then obviously the costs involved, because people don't necessarily, they're not aware, of how much that can cost, right? And if you haven't planned for it, it can be quite a hindrance on the family left behind. I don't know if
No,
did I answer?
absolutely. No, you did answer. No, I mean, I encourage anyone here. So, organizations like yours and even the Global Green Burial Alliance, we're here to support. So, you're absolutely right. We do this because we're passionate about it, and don't be fearful to call. So, people in Connecticut and surrounding states, I'm sure, are very fortunate to have you ladies there to be able to assist them at their time of need. And, I wanted to mention something to you, Lisa. You had mentioned about your book club and the movie club, and how sometimes you have 5, sometimes you have 20. Well, you know what? Even if you have one, it's a success, because when you can reach one person, then they reach others. And I used to go to these industry events, which I quite honestly did not enjoy, but of course I knew I needed to be there. And I used to have people say to me, why in the world would you go to something like that when it has nothing to do with what we do? And I would say, because if there's no voice in the room, then the message cannot be
Right,
heard,
right.
and that's how it grows. So, keep up the good work. I have a question for both of you, which is always the fun part of what we do. So I guess we could start with you, Lisa, and then Kate, if when Lisa's done, if you could answer it too. So where do you both hope to see death care in Connecticut, let's say in 5 to 10 years? What would your hopes be for what you're doing?
Oh, I have a lot of them. Ranging from realistic to probably not so much, but that's okay. I would like to see medical aid in dying passed, be legal in Connecticut. I would like to have more choice in green burial. My understanding, and I kind of took a quick look before with this call, is that the 5 places that do have green burial, which I'm thankful for. I'm not diminishing them in any way. They're mostly where you buy a plot. I'm very attracted to the, open meadow or open forest, thing. Like, I don't necessarily want anything marked or whatever. So I would like to see I don't know if they're called preserves, some sort of a burial preserve. In Connecticut, legal, and because there have been groups that have tried to start that but have not been successful, have not been able to find the land, etc. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see the different the recompose, I forget what, I mean, that's the brand name out in the West Coast, but I can't remember what,
Natural organic
Ah,
reduction,
yeah,
correct.
thank you. I forgot the term. I would like to see that legal. Oh, there's probably more. Oh, I would really like to see home funerals. It really bugs me, frankly, that the funeral directors own the bodies when they die. Like, yeah, that doesn't sit well with me. So I would like to see that open up a bit, so that home funerals would be easier to do. They're doable now, but you have to pay the company to transport the body back and forth. Like, fine, as long as you have the money, you can do that. Which, just like I said, doesn't really sit well with me. But so those are some of the things that I'd like to see. Go, Kate.
Those are wonderful.
I suppose my answer is all of the above. Again, I agree with Lisa. I would love to see all those things legal and flourishing in our state. I would like home funerals to be more easeful and just more commonplace. People automatically just caring for their own dead, bringing ritual back into because it really is to be brought into this earth and then to be out into the ether. It's like they're like such, we celebrate birthdays, we need to celebrate our deaths just as passionately, I guess. And yeah, I would love to see all of that happen in our state sooner than 10 years.
Well, that's a beautiful sentiment. But the reason I ask that question is, please, for the viewers and for the funeral providers out there that view this, listen to these ladies. Build it and they will come. This is something that you can't stop. It's coming down the tracks, and it's not going to go away. And it's always better to be ahead of the curve than behind it. So listen to the wants and needs of Lisa and Kate, and know that change is on its way. There's no doubt about it. Is there anything else, ladies, that maybe I may have missed that you'd like to share?
No, I mean, to listeners, I would say if you are local to Connecticut, don't be a stranger and reach out. And if you want to see change in your state, obviously you have to reach out to your legislators, your local representatives, and just tell them, about what you're passionate about and what you hope to see in your state, because it's a grassroots movement for sure.
No, I would just
Absolutely.
like to
Go ahead,
thank you
Lisa.
again, Ed, for the for the incredible information that you have on your website, for all the work that you have done over the years, and for your passion, which can be hard to maintain over time sometimes when there's not as much movement as you would like. So I appreciate the energy that you brought to this. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. It's been my pleasure. And we at the Global Green Burial Alliance are here to support good people and good movements and good organizations like yourself. So Lisa and Kate, I thank you for joining us today. The viewers, you can learn more about the Connecticut Death Collective by visiting ctdeathcollective.weebly.com, and certainly support these ladies in the work that they're doing. And thanks again. We appreciate it from the Global Green Burial Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.